What's up guys, Speed here, and today we're going to be looking at 7.22F. Honestly, I had no idea, and I really didn't think that IceFrog would put out another patch before TI. I feel like this is a lot, not so sure, but we're going to be going over some huge hero changes. It feels like a very much of a balanced patch, rather than like a make one hero giga relevant patch, but still something really cool to look at, some new heroes to maybe try out. Let's get into it. So the only item change of the patch is that consuming Aghanim Scepter recipe is now 200 less gold. That's about it. It was very expensive. You know, it felt niche, and you often would have a lot of gold anyway in the late game if you were going to buy it, but it was very, very expensive and hard to incorporate in the majority of games, so this makes sense. For Abaddon, I'm actually really thinking that Abaddon is pretty solid as an offlaner. In fact, I might include it in the next video, just talking about it a bit and what you should consider, but his base attack speed is now getting buffed again, which isn't a ton, it's only 5, but for the laning stage, that can matter quite a bit, and an armor increase, which is huge for Abba, especially if you're trading right-clicks, right? And in the past, if you're playing Pos 5 Abaddon, you wouldn't necessarily want to trade right-clicks, right? You're mostly playing around your miscoil, so armor wouldn't do as much. Not that it's bad, but this makes a lot more sense for like a core or off-lane Abaddon in particular, so keep your eyes out for that. That's what I'm going to say about that. So AA getting some nerfs. He has been a bit more popular lately. I didn't feel like he was that popular to the point where he maybe even deserved a nerf, but IceFrog thought so. So basically, cold feet distance to travel reduced, meaning it's easier to get out of the like latch range where it will stun you from, which seems like a big deal. It's only 25, but still. And then some mana cost on Ice Blast, which can hurt you a bit as all of your spells cost actually a lot of mana, can add up. And then a slight talent nerf, but I mean, HP regen was kind of whack anyway. Beastmaster got a seemingly decent buff. I mean, it helps with like seeing who's coming to back them up, whoever you roar, but Primal Roar knockback now destroys any trees the units come into contact with, so I guess this is to prevent you from like pushing people into the trees. Okay, I mean, sure, seems good. Bloodseeker base movement speed increased by 5. I'm actually not certain how good Bloodseeker is right now. I think his laning stage is quite potent with the Bloodright buffs, especially if you pair him with the right hero. Maybe a hero like Undying who can chip down, or even like Bounty Hunter or CC below. But in general, a base movement speed buff for a hero that, relies on movement speed and can trade particularly well is very, very strong. Bounty Hunter has received multiple buffs to Shuriken Toss. If we actually look at the spell now, it's 150 damage at level 1. 150 damage. That's one of the highest damage nukes at level 1 in the game. It's only 135 mana now, which is still quite a bit compared to a lot of nukes, but it's only an 8-second cooldown, so if you pick up a couple mangoes and chuck shurikens, you actually can zone safe laners very, very well. I feel like this has quite a bit of merit to it, and maybe something for you to try out. Just a value point in shuriken toss at level 1. Just chuck it at people. Brewmaster got a base intelligence increased by 1. Helps him in the lane a bit, that's about it. Centaur Roar Runner, what you need to know about this retaliate damage reduction is that it's much worse at the later level. So at level 1 it's not changed at all, so you're the same at level 1, but later on you actually lose 3% retaliate damage. And basically what this means, for all you who don't understand this, is retaliate damage is what you get when you activate it. So basically later on you're not going to cap at whatever, like, I don't even know what the number was, like 350 or something, or whatever it's based off of, but it's going to be a bit lower, actually quite a bit lower considering it's percentage based. This is a huge buff for Chaos Knight in my opinion. Reality Rift cooldown reduced from 20 to 14, most notably. That's the most notable one. 6 seconds off at level 1, basically like scaling down from each other, eventually just meeting at 5. And from what I saw from the Arteezy video that I made, it was he actually skipped Reality Rift. He took a value point, which is the important part to note. So he had a value point in the Reality Rift, I think at level 5 maybe? Could have been level 7, I'm forgetting now. But the important thing to note is that this is a better value point, and that's what you were taking, at least according to Arteezy, making this a big, big buff. Honestly, I know Chen was still getting picked, but like, did he really need another nerf? I mean, I think he's good, but like, Jesus. Base movement speed reduced by 5, which, once again, makes Chen even slower. Feels bad, Chen. Chen's just a rock. And then Divine Favor cooldown increased from 90 to 120 at level 1. 90 to 120. Scales down to 60, so I guess you really have to max this now more than ever. But early levels, I mean, yikes. Maybe it's still okay because you wouldn't use it that much anyway in the laning stage. That's totally wrong, actually. There's so many uses for this spell. Probably one of the biggest nerfs of this patch, if not the biggest. Huge Clockwork buff. I actually really like this because what I see here with hookshot stun duration being increased from 1 to 1.5 is that it's going to be much easier to cogs people back, or at least just get a few more ticks in of your Q, maybe like 2 or 3, which is quite significant. But I really do see it for the cogs pushback and just an overall quality of life change at the early stages for Clockwork, where, you know, hookshot really did feel like it didn't stun at all at level 1. It was very underwhelming, so this helps it out a bit. Crystal Maiden got a base armor reduction, but don't worry if you ultimate, you still have like 80 armor, so really not the end of the world. No, but for the laning stage, this hurts you quite a bit in particular, because, you know, you're a slow hero, you don't deal too well with heavy right clicks anyway, so, you know, that's just how it is for CM nowadays. Darkseer got his vacuum damage doubled at level 1 and at level 2, so cool enough, this spell is actually an 100 damage nuke now at level 2, which isn't anything crazy, but I don't think it's enough to bring Darkseer back. That shell nerf, dropping his Ion Shell down to 24 damage at level 1, hurt him so much. It just hurts so much. From 30 to 24 on a spell that ticks, it was just brutal. I don't think this is nearly enough. I think Ice Frog has been pushing this for a while, where you take a value point in vacuum, as it's like actually decent. It's like a relatively decent nuke, maybe at level 2. Instead of taking Surge, you can like be some laner and pair it with like a Sand King. But still, I don't think so. I don't think this is good enough. Darkseer maybe still has potential, but whew. Dark Willow got a terrorized duration reduction from 4 to 3.5 to 3.7 to 4, which isn't the end of the world, but I think the bigger part is now that your cooldown got reduced at least at level 3, it's 20 seconds more now, which can hurt you a bit in the late game. Makes you have to be a little bit more careful about just using it defensively or to save one person. I think you still will. 80 seconds is still fairly low, but in general, a bit worse at level 1, which hurts it a bit, and quite a bit worse for the cooldown at level 3. Dragonite's Scepter got buffed. I mean, I really haven't seen anyone legitimately buy this. Maybe because the hero's unpopular, but I don't think so. I don't know, guys. 30 to 40%. I mean, that's a lot of magic resistance. No joke, but that still means you have to get to level 18 to actually get it, if I'm not mistaken, which isn't so good. It's just like not that good. So I'm not sold on this. I think the talent is obviously decent. The 180 gold per minute to 210 instead of 25 strength, though, that's a hard bargain. Not taking 25 strength on Dragonite is kind of a yikes. So don't know. Draw Ranger got some pretty nice buffs, actually. Base strength increased by 1, which can, you know, make or break potentially a first blood, and base agility, which also could make or break a first blood, and gives her 1 damage. So pretty good. I mean, nothing crazy, obviously. It's not like, whoa, Drow's broken. No. Back to the last patch, or whatever patch that was. But also a talent change, where she got increased from 30% Gust Blind to 40%. I really haven't even seen this because Drow isn't popular. Just makes people blind, which seems potentially powerful. The other talent's actually decent. 14 agility is pretty good. So maybe this makes sense in some games against like a Sven or some other right clicker. I don't know, Weaver. I don't know why Weaver came to mind. Slark, I guess. You'll figure it out. Echo Stomp, 15 less mana at level 1, which is the important part, so you can use it a bit more in the laning stage. I think it helps Elder Titan a bit. He had like slight mana issues, nothing crazy though. It could kind of be solved with like a Mango and a Clarity, but helps him out quite a bit. So better laner. Nice. Ember Spirit, 1 less armor. Still get a nerf. That's what I'm talking about. I actually love seeing Ember play. Honestly, I think this is one of the most fun heroes to watch in Dota. So, you know, to be fair, I don't love seeing him get nerfed, but he does need it. Still one of the strongest heroes in Dota. Kind of just provides everything you'd want in a core. So, feels good, man. Enigma base intelligence reduction by 2. Still nerfing Enigma. Don't really know what this means for the hero. I don't understand Enigma fully to understand what a base intelligence reduction by 2 would actually do to him. Maybe it's 1 less Eidolon based upon how much clarity you get going, but I can't imagine this is too bad for what Enigma really wants to do, which is just sack range creeps and buy clarities. Grimstroke already had a kind of a meh laning stage, at least as a Pos 5. Pos 4 you're still fine due to the fact that your spells do a lot. And now you have 4 less base damage? I mean, you just traded 1v1 poorly as is, now you trade 1v1 even worse? I mean, your 1v1 wasn't awful, but it definitely wasn't incredible. Especially due to your kind of meh attack animation and base attack time. But now you just have 4 less damage? I mean, okay. Invoker base intelligence increased by 1. More? Big kid Invoker? Thanks, Ice Frog. But I mean, it's fine. I don't think Invoker's particularly great right now. I think he's just mediocre at best. So, buffing Invoker's cool. Do I love having Invoker on my team if they're good? But, I don't know. I'm really not sold on Invoker being good even with these buffs. Some Cold Snap damage is great, considering you actually do get the Cold Snap cooldown. So this seems pretty significant. 8 more damage per tick. I mean, it's not gonna like change the game, but I guess it could if it secures a kill somehow. Juggernaut, base agility reduced by 2. Oof. Yes, I did just say oof. And base strength reduced by 1. Worst laning stage, basically the opposite of Drow, so maybe Drow now beats Jug in lane. Maybe that was the point of that change. I'm kidding. Relax. I'm kidding. Keeper of the Light Will-O-Wisp radius increased from 700 to 725. I actually have seen some players picking up Coddle again. I feel like this hero isn't that bad and maybe didn't even need a buff and is just being underpicked. However, this is pretty nice. The radius being increased is obviously huge for such a large AoE spell as is. So, nice. I think Cuddle's pretty good. I would check out this hero. Luna, base damage increased by 2. They're really trying to make this hero better in lane, which is what it needs, without like over buffing it. And I understand because Luna is like a very good farmer, but the problem is it's really hard to get her to the point where it's actually effective, where she doesn't just get run over, because she dies very easily for the first like 15 minutes. It feels really bad. You have to get like a lot of items to make her not just insta-die. And comparing her to a hero like Sven, even though, you know, Sven does get nerfed in this patch, as you'll see, still, it's hard to work her in my opinion, with a lot of drafts. Feral Impulse damage for Lycan increased by 2%. Does that change the game? No. Does it help them? Of course. It's pretty good. 2% more for the wolves and the boys. Nice. And then Howl regen also up by 2. So the 2 patch for Lycan. I'm just going to say good. Don't think this makes Lycan a god, but makes him better at what he does. Mars base damage reduced by 2. Okay, I mean, understandable for sure. This hero is still very good. I mean, what it does is just insane, and its laning stage is still incredible. So I think it's going to need at least like 2 more patches before it gets kicked out of the meta, because this isn't enough. I mean, Gods are being reduced as well is good, but it's not enough to kick Mars out of the meta, in my opinion. Morphling Waveform, basically they reduce its cast range, so it's harder to cast stuff now. For a while, they've been sort of incentivizing Waveform increase. As you can see in 7.22c, the mana cross was increased, however the cooldown was decreased, which didn't really actually like change much, but never mind, I take it all back. But cast range reduced basically on Waveform and Morph, actually a lot on Morph, from 1,000 to 700, 300 units less. That really does make a big difference. If you're chasing down or want to close the gap on an Ember and turn into him, you have to get much closer, which actually could potentially even get you killed, because you can cast Morph out of vision less. So I think this really hurts Morphling. As is, I've been seeing less and less Morphling. Do I think he's still viable? Of course. Morphling is just Morphling. It's a very odd hero that has a very cool niches, but this hurts him a lot. Let's go, Nature's Prophet buff. That's what I'm talking about, boys. I know all you guys were hyped for some Nature's Prophet buffs. I know I am. 3.3 intelligence gain to 3.5. Watch out. Your lane's about to get dumpsters. Kidding, I really don't. I mean, this is great, but like, it's not that good. Necrophos base intelligence increased by 1, so 1 damage. Nice. And Death Pulse radius increased. That's pretty good. This actually can matter quite a bit in the laning stage. Even, I mean, at every stage, I guess. So this is pretty good. This radius increase for Death Pulse just lets you track people down easier. Night Stalker base movement speed increased, which is great, because a lot of the time how you'd have to play as Night Stalker is just bouncing either in and out of trees if you're solo laning off lane, or really bouncing in and off the wave because you can't trade that well, or being able to like trade 1v1 with a weak support and get on top of them. Getting on top of them was kind of the hard part in the daytime. So overall, I like this. I think you needed some movement speed. Omni Knight Purification cooldown. It really seems like you have the max Purification now. Maxing Heavenly Grace is obviously still really good because it scales down, but I don't know. I feel like Purification might be the better spell to max now. Don't quote me on that, but it feels bad to have this at a 17-second cooldown at level 1 now instead of 14. So I believe I also saw Mind Control play this and he maxed Purification. So as an offlaner, I think you can kind of argue going this now. And a slight talent nerf. Don't think this matters at all. Apparently OD got nerfed. I didn't even feel like OD was good. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, were people really picking OD? Or